FBA, the Black Power movement. This video is about foundational Black American history. We're here to learn our history, yes. I'm Dr. Clyde Winters, and I'm here to talk about our FBA history. Foundational Black Americans, yes. We are, in a sense, a lineage. The FBA are people who founded much of the culture and cleared the land in the United States. Foundational Black Americans were here even before this government came into being. Yes. We were here before the Constitution. If you want to find out more about foundational Black American history, you can get my books, History of Blacks in America from Prehistory to 1877. In this book, I explain that FBA history is a tripartite history. FBA history is a history of three different groups. Yes. Foundational Black Americans. Our ancestors were the Black Native Americans, Black Europeans, and of course, Sub-Saharan Africans. In History of Blacks in America from Prehistory to 1877, you can learn more about this history. You might also want to buy my book, The Phylogeography of Afro-Americans and Africans. In this book, I discuss the haplogroups and various genetic genome that relate to the various African and Black populations in Africa and the United States. Check this book out if you want to find out more about our genetic history. And of course, my book, We Are Not Just Africans, the Black Native Americans. This book is the only book that you can find that explains, in a sense, that we are not just of African origin. This book is also very important because this book provides information on the various Black Indian groups that were in America when Europeans came to the United States. Yes, North America. Our ancestors, the majority of people who lived in the United States when Europeans first came, were Black Native Americans, not Mongoloid Indians, but Black Native American Indians. Get my book, We Are Not Just Africans, to find out more. Other books that I've written on ancient America include Atlantis and Mexico, where I discuss the history of the Olmecs, African empires in ancient America. In this book, I discuss, in a sense, the various African empires. No, some people have told you that Black people contributed to the history of South America and Mesoamerica and Mexico. But no, what I show you is that there were Black empires, yes, empires. These were great nations that Black people had established in pre-Columbian America. It's in my book, African Empires in Ancient America. I've already told you about We Are Not Just Africans, but also get my book, Ancient Scripts in South America. In Ancient Scripts in South America, I explain to you the history of writing in South America. We've been taught, in the sense, that people in South America didn't have any writing, except for maybe Kupus, which is supposed to be a language that was made by tying strings together. But in this book, I explain that there were, in a sense, many African writing systems used by people in South America. Especially, I discuss the Sumerians, who had a colony in South America called Kugaki. Then my book, The Mandi in Ancient America, is many nations that were founded by Mandi-speaking people. Yes, the Mandingos played a significant role in the rise of civilization in the Americas, you see. For example, the Aztecs, their name was Mexica. The Aztecs, they claimed that they were descendants of the Mandi, or they were Mandi people. This is quite interesting because it shows, in a sense, that the Aztecs, spoke, in a sense, the Mandi language, and that these were Mandingo people. Yes. That's why they call themselves Mexica, which means in Mandingo, the great Black lands. Yes. And also get my book, The Black Mound Builders of America. In this book, I discuss the various mound cultures that formerly existed in North America. But today we're going to talk about Black Power. Yes, Black Power. You don't hear too much about the Black Power movement. In fact, they rarely discuss the Black Power movement in any historical programs, because the fact is that the Black Power movement is very important in the history of foundational Black Americans because it was this movement that led directly to black people being given greater opportunities for a college education, jobs, employment, everything, because of the fact and sense that black people had all these insurrections that resulted from participating in the Black Power movement. Black Power demanded that the FBA individual have black pride and a positive self-esteem. A person suffering from CAIDS, culturally acquired immune deficiency syndrome, is no longer a proud black man or woman due to their acceptance of white supremacist tenets that black historical and cultural values must be rejected in favor of feelings of inferiority, empty self-esteem, and being subservient to Caucasians. Cultural and historical values they manifest to harm African and black people generally. The objective of fighting CAIDS, you see, is very important. You see, the aims of knowing your history is to strengthen your cultural awareness of black and African people so that you can have the self-confidence to fight CAIDS. Afrocentrism is the ideational code blacks can use to conceptualize the universe in which they live and interact. Culture can be defined as man's learned accumulated social experience, including man's art, belief, customs, knowledge, law, and morals that are transmitted and shared by a social group, in this case, foundational black Americans. In general, culture refers to a system of learned ideas, not what we do or make. Much is written about the Black Power movement, but little if nothing is mentioned about the teenagers who became the members of the Black Panthers, participated in riots, protest marches, militant student organizations at high schools and universities across the nation. Yes, yes. It was young people who, in a sense, ignited and made the foundation of the Black Power movement. It was these teenagers, high school students, junior high school students, and university students who were out to fight to get black people justice, to get black people rights, and get freedom in these United States. The Black Power movement was mainly an urban movement among black youth in the major urban centers of the northern cities of the United States and California. The roots of the Black Power movement were one, the horrible living conditions in the FBA ghettos that existed in the major urban centers of the United States. Two, the speeches of Malcolm X. Three, the urban insurrections or riots. Four, Stokely Carmichael. Five, black culture, especially music. And five, the King Alfred plan found in the novel of The Man Who Cried I Am. All of these influences played a great part in terms of the rise of the Black Power movement and numerous insurrections in the black communities across the USA. Most urban baby boomers in the North did not support the civil rights movement. Many baby boomer youth in the major urban centers of the USA did not support the civil rights movement. They believed in black nationalism and black power. The definition of black nationalism is advocacy of or support for unity and political self-determination for FBA, especially in the form of a separate black nation. Baby boomers felt that leaders of the civil rights movement were allowing themselves to be humiliated by whites, beating them up in the South. They felt that black people should be fighting back to gain their freedom through armed conflict. At the beginning of the Black Power movement, the baby boomers were teenagers. As a result, they followed the leaders of the movement, Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael. People forget that the baby boomers were teenagers in the 1960s. Yes, it's always the youth who have this desire, in a sense, to change things. And also an important character for most youth is that they're not afraid to die. They're not afraid to fight. And this is one of the reasons why most of your movements that lead to any type of change in society, most of your movements that lead to any type of change in most countries come from the youth, the teenagers, the young adults. These young people felt that, granted, they did not have the weapons to fight an armed struggle. They still wanted to confront the government in a militant fashion, using boycotts and demonstrations to illustrate their desire for better living conditions and better jobs, which demanded that educational policies and opportunities had to be implemented so baby boomers could make life better for themselves and their families. Community events determine how we view ourselves in the society of foundational Black Americans. Stokely Carmichael, or Kwame Ture, he was the main leader of this movement. In fact, it was Stokely Carmichael, or Kwame Ture, who coined the phrase Black Power, you see. And this is very important because Black people want to have power of their own. They want to have the power to determine their own life, their own futures. They want to have the power, in a sense, to be able to get jobs and raise families. Yes, Black Power. This is what we sought. This is what we needed. And this is why we joined the Black Power movement. Even though we were young, even though we were teenagers, we weren't afraid. Malcolm X, or Malik al-Hajj Shabazz, is one of the most important figures in the Black Power movement. It was Malcolm X who was the initial spokesman for FBA unity. He taught FBA that they were a unique people who were not sick because of what they had done to themselves. They were sick and tired of the conditions they lived in as a result of the racism and hate whites directed at them. Malcolm X made FBA realize they were an African people and that they were a part of the world which was dominated by blacks, not whites. His assassination in 1965 made it clear to the baby boomers who were race conscious and not suffering from AIDS that whites would do anything to keep FBA divided and without leadership. Stokely Carmichael, or Kwame Ture, was born in June 29, 1941, in Trinidad. Ture embraced the doctrine of Black Power, which emphasized self-reliance and Black nationalism. Inspired by Malcolm X, Ture recognized violence as a legitimate form of self-defense. Yes, yes, yes. This is in opposition to the Civil Rights Movement. The adherents to the Civil Rights Movement, they believed that you could only obtain any type of justice through nonviolent means. You see, Black Power people felt in the sense that you may have to have violence to get your rights. You may have to produce violence to get justice. The tenets of Black Power were popularized by Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture, although born in Trinidad, he grew up in New York City. It was at Bronx High School of Science where he began to fight for justice for foundational Black Americans. In 1967, Ture gave his first Black Power speech, in which he urged FBA to have Black pride and seek socioeconomic independence. He said, and I quote, "It is a call for Black people in this country to unite, to recognize their heritage, to build a sense of community. It is a call for Black people to define their own goals, to lead their own organizations." Yes, yes, Black Power, Black Power. Another important figure in the Black Power movement was Frantz Fanon. To achieve Black Power, many baby boomers began to read the work of Frantz Fanon. They read his work because many baby boomers who believed in Black Power believed that the ghettos they lived in were treated by the police the same way settlers treated the populations they colonized. This was an apt way to explain the government's treatment of FBA, because the vast majority of FBA were descendants of the Aboriginal Black Indians who were living in North America when the British colonized the USA. See, you got to understand that many foundational Black Americans accept the reality that we are prisoners of war. Yes, we are prisoners of war. The reason, in the sense that foundational Black Americans, led by Neely Fuller, believe that they are prisoners of war is because of the fact is that we did not come over here voluntarily as immigrants. We either came over here after being kidnapped from Ireland, Scotland, and Africa, or we were the Aboriginal Black Indians who had founded civilization in this country. So either way it went, we were not, in a sense, free people who came over here seeking freedom or seeking liberation. We came over here as prisoners of war, and sadly, Black people continue to feel that they're prisoners of war, POWs. One of the most important groups during the Black Power period were the Black Panthers. Bobby Seale and Huey Newton founded the Black Panthers in Oakland, California. The Black Panthers did not believe in nonviolence as a strategy for FBA to obtain freedom. The Black Panthers believed FBA should be armed and, if necessary, use violence as self-defense. In the 10-point platform of the Panthers, it was noted, and I quote, "We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black community. We believe that Black people will not be free until we are able to determine our destiny," unquote. The Black Panthers established many social programs such as schools, free lunch and breakfast programs, and Meals on Wheels for seniors. It was the baby boomers who carried out these programs in cities across the USA. As a result, when someone says the baby boomers did not participate in the FBA quest for freedom and justice, they are lying, because it was the baby boomers, teenagers and young adults who, in a sense, participated in the Black Power movement. They were the backbone of the Black Power movement. They were the activists that sought to gain justice for Black people. John A. Williams, he's very important also when we think about the rise of the Black Power movement in the United States. In 1967, the novel The Man Who Cried I Am was published by the foundational Black American writer John A. Williams. This book is about Max Reddick, a journalist who learns about a secret government plan to exterminate all 22 million FBA in the event of national insurrections or riots, and that national insurrections or riots that turn into a civil war. This book was called The Man Who Cried I Am. It's a very important book. It's the most powerful novel, and this book also, in a sense, led to many teenagers and young Black adults, foundational Black American, believing in a sense that if we didn't prepare, we would be exterminated in this country. Yes, exterminated. In the Man Who Cried I Am, there was the King Alfred plan. In the Man Who Cried I Am, Max discovers a briefcase left by his friend Harry Ames, also a news reporter, that contained the King Alfred plan, which explained how the government would carry out the plan to exterminate Black people. When this was published in The Man Who Cried I Am in 1967, FBA insurrections were taking place in Boston, Detroit, Newark, New Jersey, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Tampa, Florida. Here, the local police had to assault foundational Black American women and men to end the uprising. Yes, there were riots all over the place. So, of course, when we read that there was a plan to exterminate Black people in the event of a nationwide insurrections by foundational Black Americans, we had to accept that it was true. Because we were seeing every day in our communities the police and the National Guard coming in a sense, to pacify the communities. Given the uprisings in the foundational Black American ghettos and the CIA, Army intelligence, FBI surveilling FBI leaders, and the increasing attempts of the FBI to neutralize organizations advocating Black power, like the Black Panther Party, led many baby boomers to believe that King Alfred plan was not a fictional story made up by Williams, but an actual federal government plan to exterminate FBA. As you might imagine, The Man Who Cried I Am became a bestseller. In 1968, it was a period of extreme rioting in the United States. In 1968, Martin Luther King was murdered. Blacks staged riots across the country after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. After the assassination of Martin Luther King, FBA staged insurrections across the United States in April and May 1968. These insurrections were in Washington, D.C. The riot lasted for 4 days. In Chicago, the insurrection lasted 3 days. In Baltimore, the insurrection lasted 6 days. In Avondale, Cincinnati, the insurrection lasted, only 1 day. Kansas City, the insurrection was 1 day. In Wilmington, the insurrection was 2 days. And in Louisville, the insurrection lasted 2 days. As you can see, Black people were upset. Black people finally felt down. They killed Malcolm X, and he was Black power. Then they killed, in a sense, Martin Luther King, and he was nonviolent. And this made baby boomers feel that we had to turn this mother out. Burn, baby, burn, baby, burn. because we felt, in a sense, that they were out to kill us, they were out to destroy us, and that black people had to fight with guns or without guns. The unrest in the cities lasted for days. These riots made the government recognize that it was hard to maintain order without extending a large number of military and police manpower into the ghettos to put down the rebellions. In 1968, there was the Olympics. The idea of black nationalism was popularized among baby boomers after the 1968 Olympics. The foundational black American sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos were medalists in the 200-meter run at the 1968 Olympic Games. When the national anthem was played, these great black heroes, they stood up with their heads lowered and black glove fixed, raised in the Black Power salute. And this was to demonstrate that yes, we were being discriminated, we were being mistreated. And this was the first time, in a sense, that black people began to recognize black power on an international basis. This was a time that black people felt so proud that we were there, black and proud, as we were out to seek black power. Black nationalism was the name of the game. The riots were also bad for the image of the USA and the world. The events after the murder of Martin Luther King made it clear globally that the United States might not be the center of democracy in the world as it portrayed itself abroad. Black nationalism was the idea that foundational black Americans should have the right to self-determination. Foundational black American baby boomers felt it was time they went into action to fight for their rights and justice. The youth began to make protests in their high schools and the public arena to demand better treatment and socioeconomic opportunities. We need to know what happened to us, to imbue in us amnesia relating to our loss of black identity. Yes, isn't it? It's strange. Today, many black people don't want to be recognized as being black. But in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, black power was the word. Black power was the name of the game. And black people were happy to call themselves black. So we need to know what happened. What happened to make black people begin to feel that they shouldn't recognize themselves as black? Oh, yes. It began with the FBI. The FBI killed our leaders. They killed Malcolm X. They killed Martin Luther King. They tried to kill Stokely Carmichael, but he left the country and moved into Africa. You see, to attack black nationalism, the government had to make FBA forget about the Black Power movement. Yes, if you notice, they go through every historical period of many Afro-Americans, but they always fail to mention, in a sense, the Black Power movement. They fail to mention the Black Power movement because they don't want foundational black Americans to think that they can ever have self-determination and justice. And they know that it was because of the efforts of the baby boomers that many of the rights that black people have today came from those riots. And these riots were carried out, in a sense, by teenagers and young foundational black American adults. Use the big lie. Yes, they want to control you by using the big lie. The German propagandist Goebbels noted that, and I quote, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its power to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. In other words, in a sense, you use the big lie, and that's what they did. Today, they want you to believe, as foundational black Americans, that you got your rights off of the nonviolent civil rights movement. But if you notice these black people went around, got their heads beat. These black people went around and got dogs sicked on them. These black people went around and got beaten by police. And nothing happened. The only thing that changed things was when black people started rioting. When black people started having insurrections in the cities, we looked up and we had in a sense the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And then after the 1968 insurrections, they started giving black people government jobs. They started giving black people opportunities to go to college. and opportunities to get better jobs and stuff. Yes, yes, it didn't come from any nonviolence. It came from black people rioting and demanding their own freedom. There, as a result, there was an counterintelligence program. It was called COINTELPRO. You know, and COINTELPRO, what it did is that it set out, in a sense, to destroy the black nationalist organizations. Many black, many baby boomers became members of organizations like the Republic of New Africa and the MOVE, the Christian Movement for Life in Philadelphia. Between 1968 and 1980, the FBI and other government agencies waged a war against the black baby boomers who joined Black Power organizations. Using drugs and local police agencies, they were and the FBI counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, they targeted Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Panthers, Republic of New Africa, all the black groups, and they started, in a sense, going through a process of either killing people off or trying to ruin their reputations, or both. Many people were thrown in jails. Activities included spying, wiretapping phones, making criminal charges on flimsy evidence, spreading rumors, and even assassinating prominent individuals like the Black Panther Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. By the mid-1970s, these actions helped to weaken or destroy many of the groups associated with the Black Power movement. So we had all these different things that were used to destroy black people, especially crack. Yes, yes, yes. The crack epidemic destroyed the foundational black American community. There were so many people on crack that there were young people going to jail left and right. People were killing each other to sell drugs. Many parents were on drugs, and the families were going wild. You see, and all of these things, you know, COINTELPRO and the CIA pumping crack into the foundational black American communities. It got so many people addicted that before you knew it, people forgot about being black power. Many of the young people, they became estranged with the community. They don't even know what was going on. You see? Yes, they did these things to stop people understanding and believing in black power. They wanted black people, in a sense, to be more submissive. They wanted black people, in a sense, to give up on trying to get justice. And they wanted black people to do this by just thinking that drugs could make them feel better and that drugs would take the hurt away. You see? Then there was the Department of Justice. Department of Justice, they were out to arrest black people. Many black people, in a sense, had to hijack planes to get out the country. You see? You know, you had the Republic of New Africa. You had them attacking the Black Panther Party. Yes, 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 the FBI, Department of Justice, CIA, Army intelligence, police intelligence communities in many urban areas across the street, they were out to destroy the Black Power movement, and they did. The leaders of many of these organizations were jailed on made-up charges or persecuted by the courts after they engaged in confrontations with law enforcement officials who were either killed and or injured. Some of these black power heroes who did not die in prison remain in prison today. Yes, there's many black people in prison today. And they've been in jail for 40 years, over 40 years, because they were involved in the Black Power movement and they wanted black people, in a sense, to gain freedom. Yes, there are black political prisoners that date back to the Black Power movement. This was not a time, in a sense, where black people were generous. This was not a time where black people were just accepting everything like sheep. That's why they don't want to talk about the Black Power movement. And in 1978, the MOVE compound in Philadelphia was bombed by the police. Yes, yes. Many people have heard about the bombing of Black Wall Street, but other people don't know about the bombing of a whole entire community in Philadelphia just to get rid of these Black Power people, you know? This bombing killed 6 MOVE members and destroyed 65 houses. 65 houses. This is just to tell you that this was a time when black people were out trying to get their freedom, and the only way that they could stop this, the only way they could get black people to turn around and go backwards, they had to give us drugs. They had to give us crack. This is only a short account of the activities baby boomers participated in to make it possible for FBA to enjoy greater job opportunities, housing, and FBA prosperity today. Granted, Many people were not involved in the Black Power movement, but enough of us were to force the government to implement programs to benefit FBA, such as free lunch and breakfast programs. Educational opportunities allowed FBA to get better jobs and especially greater access to housing outside the ghettos and tenements we formerly lived in. Black Power. This proves that all FBA do not have to be united, and how small cadres of baby boomers who believed in black nationalism could make political and social changes across the FBA communities. It is also evidence that even though the CIA and FBA introduced the crack rock drug to destroy the will of many foundational black Americans and stimulate gang warfare to decrease advocacy of black power and black nationalism, the efforts of the baby boomers to bring about black power through black nationalism has benefited the estimated 100 million foundational black Americans living in the United States today. The memory of the fight for black nationalism by baby boomers was lost through intra-gang violence, crimes related to the use and sale of illegal drugs, and the mass media anti-black power propaganda. This caused a 2 to 3 decade long amnesia across foundational black American population centers. This amnesia resulted from the crack addiction programs of the CIA and FBI, which ravaged FBA communities across the United States. It is these influences of crack that led, in a sense, to the amnesia, which led many people not to understand the great role that the baby boomers played through the Black Power movement in changing, in a sense, the rights and privileges for black people. It was the baby boomers during the Black Power movement that allowed America to be the land it is today, that allowed many black people to have greater opportunities today that we're benefiting from. The Black Authority, Black Studies movements were also, in a sense, part of the Black Power movement. It was the Black Power movement, in a sense, that led, in a sense, to the rise of Black Studies programs in universities and colleges across the United States, and even in high schools. You see? Thank you. But as you can see today, with the attacks on critical race theory and the attacks even on Afro-American history being taught in the schools, that there needs to be a new movement. It needs to be a new movement in which foundational black Americans fight to force the governments to change and force the governments to teach our history in the public schools. But even if, yes, even if they fail to teach our history to our children in the public schools, we should still make sure to teach our history and share our history with our children. That's why I made this video. Thank you and goodbye.